Imagine you are standing in a huge old palace. The walls are covered in gold and the floors are so shiny that you can see your own face in them. Everyone is whispering. They are talking about a big secret that is hiding behind the heavy wooden doors. King Charles has done something that no one ever thought he would do. He took a beautiful sparkling crown away from his wife, Queen Camilla, but he did not just put it away in a box. He gave it to Catherine, the Princess of Wales. This is a story about a king who had to make a very hard choice. It is a story about a mother who wanted to help her daughter and a king who had to protect his country's rules. Why would a husband do this to his wife? Is there a secret fight happening where no one can see? Today we are going to tell you the whole story of the crown, the secret plans, and the new future of the royal family. Get ready, because the secrets of the palace are finally coming out. May the helper of the king, whose name is Camilla, be blessed with many good things. She wears a beautiful crown on her head and many people think she will keep it forever. Most people who watch the royal family think that King Charles is a very careful man. They think he thinks a lot before he does anything. But lately he did something that shocked everyone. He did something that changed the old rules of the palace. In a very brave and bold move, he took the crown that belonged to Camilla and gave it to Catherine. Some people say that Camilla asked him one last time to keep it, but the king said no. This big choice has made many people whisper in the hallways. They are talking about who is loyal and who is not. They are wondering why the roles in the family are changing so fast. Why did Charles pick Catherine instead of his wife? What does this mean for the future of the king and the queen? This was a move that no one saw coming. King Charles did something that was very daring. It was a choice that will be remembered for a long time. Ever since he became the king, he has tried to be a good leader. He wanted to be careful and make sure everyone felt safe. But this time he had to be very firm. He made a choice that no one could ignore. He decided to take a crown that everyone thought belonged to Queen Camilla and put it in the hands of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. This was not just about a piece of jewelry. This move had a very deep meaning. It showed that big changes were coming. It showed that things might be different from now on. Behind this big moment, there was a lot of stress building up inside the palace walls. It was like a balloon that was about to pop. The stress started because of something happening quietly. The king found out that some people were trying to bring Laura Lopes closer to the middle of the royal family. Laura is Camilla's daughter from her first marriage. For a long time, this was just a private family matter. But then the king started to see it as something much more serious. It was not just about being nice to family members anymore. It looked like people were trying to change the rules of who gets to be important in the royal family. For hundreds of years, the monarchy has stayed strong because the rules of who is next in line are very clear. Everyone must respect the line of inheritance. If those rules start to change, everything becomes messy. The king knew that he could not let things become uncertain. The crown needs to be stable and strong. When the king talked to Queen Camilla about this, she got very upset. They had a private talk that was filled with big feelings. People say that Camilla defended what she did. She said she was only acting like a mother. She wanted to make sure her daughter Laura had a good future. She did not want her daughter to be left behind or forgotten when things changed. To Camilla, it was just a mother's instinct. She loved her child and wanted the best for her. But to the king, it was not that simple. He had to look at the big picture. He had to think about the whole country and the history of the throne. He felt that the issue had grown much bigger than just one mother's feelings. King Charles had to make a choice that hurt his heart. He decided that the needs of the monarchy were more important than his feelings for his wife. This was a very powerful message. He did not even have to say it out loud for people to understand. Inside Buckingham Palace, which is a place full of old stories and memories, a very private ceremony happened. There were no big cameras there. There were no crowds of people cheering outside the gates. There was no news report on the TV. Everything happened behind closed doors where it was very, very quiet. The king stood in the middle of the room. He looked very steady, but you could tell he felt the weight of the moment. He had worked hard to be a modern king, but now he was facing a fight inside his own family. Queen Camilla stood near him. She has spent a long time being judged by the public. She worked hard to finally stand beside the king as his queen. Now she stood there very calmly, but everyone could feel the tension around her. She looked like she was holding back a lot of emotion. And then there was Catherine. She stood across from them with a lot of grace and quiet strength. Since she married Prince William many years ago, she's become someone that people really respect. Many people see her as the future of the royal family. She is a symbol of staying calm and keeping things going. She was wearing a simple but very pretty dark dress. She knew that this moment was a big responsibility. The crown she was going to get was not just for looking pretty. It was a symbol of hard work and the hopes of the whole nation. The king broke the silence by opening a box made of green velvet. Inside was a crown that had a lot of history. It was covered in shiny stones. One of the stones was the famous Koh-i-Noor diamond. This diamond has many stories about power and bad luck. As the king reached for the crown, his hands shook just a little bit. He was not scared, but he knew how important this choice was. He did not look at Camilla. Maybe he knew that if he looked at her, he would feel too sad to finish what he was doing. In that moment, he was acting like a king, not just a husband. He had a duty to do. He slowly lifted the crown into the air. The light hit the diamonds and made bright flashes all over the room. For a second, it felt like time stopped moving. Queen Camilla watched everything very closely. Her face did not show much, but her eyes told a different story. She was not just losing a pretty object, she was losing her position. She was losing a symbol of where she stood in the royal world. When the king walked toward Catherine, the room felt even heavier. Catherine bowed her head a little bit. She was ready to take on what the king was giving her. With very careful hands, the king placed the crown on her head. Queen Camilla stayed very still. Her eyes followed the crown as it moved from her world into Catherine's world. Why did the king do this? Does he have a secret plan that no one knows about yet? The ceremony ended very quickly. After it was over, there was a strange and heavy silence left in the room. The helpers and advisors bowed their heads and walked away into the dark hallways of the palace. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, did a small and polite curtsy. Then she turned around and walked out. Her shoes made a soft tapping sound on the shiny wooden floor. Only King Charles was left in the room. He stood right in the center and did not move. Even though he was standing there, his mind was thinking about things that happened 10 days ago. That was the moment when everything started to change. That was the day he saw the first secret reports on his desk. Those reports were about Camilla and her daughter, Laura. That was the start of the path that led to this hard choice. 10 days before the crown was moved, the palace looked very normal. It looked grand and calm, just like it always does. To the people outside, it looked like a place where nothing ever goes wrong. But inside the king's private office, things were not calm at all. The air felt very tight, like it was hard to breathe. On his big wooden desk, there were many papers about the country, but one folder was different. It was a dark blue folder. It was not about world news or charity work. It was a report about small changes happening inside the palace. These were changes that most people did not notice at first, but when you put them all together, they meant something big. Charles sat back in his chair. He looked at the words his trusted helpers had written. At first, he did not think the news was a big deal. The report said that Laura Lopes was going to some meetings. Her name was starting to show up on lists for big royal events. Usually, Charles was very nice to Laura. He treated her like his own family. But as he read more, he saw that these small things were part of a bigger plan. There was a slow rise in how much power she was getting. He remembered times at his old house when Camilla would talk about how smart her daughter was. She would say that the royal family could use some new ideas from people they trusted. At the time, Charles just thought she was a proud mom. Now he realized it was more than that. The papers showed a very careful plan. Behind closed doors, people were working to change the royal rules. They wanted to make new jobs that would give more power to people who were not in the direct line for the throne. At the very center of this plan was Laura Lopes. The plan was to give her a real paid job with a lot of authority in the palace. For Charles, this was a big problem. When he became king, he promised to make the royal family smaller and more focused. He wanted to focus only on the people who would one day be king or queen. This new plan for Laura would break that promise. He felt very disappointed. He walked to the window and looked at the guards outside. They were marching in a perfect line, just like they always do. But inside his family, the line was starting to break. Charles felt like a protector who found cracks in the walls of his house. But he did not get loud or angry. He did not scream or make a scene. Instead, he stayed very calm. He took his pen and drew a line under the names of 2 people who were helping with the plan. That simple act with the pen meant that those people would be in big trouble. He wanted to know how deep this plan went. He wanted to know if Camilla was the one who started it all. He started a silent investigation. He wanted to find the truth without making a big mess that the public would see. Behind the scenes, the king set a serious plan in motion. Everything looked fine on the outside, but inside, people were looking for secrets. The long hallways of the palace felt different. It felt like everyone was being watched. The king used a small group of people he trusted very much. These were people who had worked for the royal family for a long time and knew how to keep a secret. Their job was to look at every piece of paper and every plan to see what was really going on. They wanted to find the hidden connections between the queen and these new ideas. In a quiet room in the back of the palace, the work began. This room had old records that no one had looked at in years. There was one lamp that made a soft light over piles of paper. It was very still in there. You could only hear the sound of paper turning. The helpers wore white gloves so they would not ruin the old documents. They looked at letters, schedules, and notes from meetings. Slowly, they found things that were very important. They found meetings that were never put on the official calendar. They found private talks between the queen and important officials. They even found letters with the queen's private seal on them. These letters were trying to convince people that Laura Lopes should have a big new job. Even though the king did not do the searching himself, he read every report. Every night, his helpers gave him a summary of what they found. He would read them all alone in his office. Sometimes he would look at the picture of Queen Elizabeth II on his wall. Her face reminded him of his duty. It reminded him that being king means doing what is right, even if it is hard. He felt a lot of pain as a husband, but he also felt a lot of responsibility as a king. He was very upset that family relationships were being used to get more power. He felt like his trust had been broken. The helpers found something even more serious. They found a draft of a plan. This plan said that Laura Lopes would go on big royal trips to other countries. She would not just be a guest, she would be there to represent the queen at important events. This was a very big deal. Usually only the main working royals get to do that. Adding someone else without telling the public is a big break from tradition. It looked like a secret way to put Laura in the middle of the royal family before anyone could say no. The king saw that this was not an accident. It was a careful plan made by Camilla and her small group of friends. What made the king even angrier was finding out that some people thought he liked the plan. They were told that this was what the king wanted for the future. When Charles found this out, he felt a cold anger. He hated that his name was being used to support things he never said yes to. When he saw Camilla at dinners or events, he stayed very calm. He did not let his face show how he felt. He watched how she smiled and talked. He was being patient. He was waiting until he had all the proof he needed. He knew that once he had the truth, no one could deny it. Finally, the search was over. A final report was put on his desk. It had everything: the letters, the secret plans, and the names of everyone involved. The king picked up his pen and looked at Laura's name on the paper. He knew he had to make a very difficult choice. To protect the future of the monarchy and to keep the trust of Prince William and Catherine, he had to act. This action would hurt his own marriage, but he knew he had to do it. He called Camilla to talk. They sat at a small table, but it felt like they were miles apart. Charles did not say anything for a long time. Then he pushed a green folder toward her. It had all the proof inside. His eyes, which used to be full of love, were now very cold and distant. He watched her as she touched the folder. Her fingers shook just a little bit. She tried to stay calm, but he could see she was worried. Camilla did not open the folder right away. She looked at him with eyes that showed she was hurt and stubborn. She did not think she did anything wrong. In her heart, she thought she was just being a good mother. She thought she was helping her daughter get what she deserved. She felt she was protecting her family. But Charles spoke in a low, quiet voice. He talked about rules and what they were supposed to do. He told her that being king and queen is a sacred job. He said that personal feelings cannot come before their duty to the country. Camilla tried to stay quiet, but she couldn't. She looked at the wall where there were old family pictures. In those pictures, her children were there, but they always seemed like they were on the outside. She wanted them to be on the inside. To her, she was fixing something that was unfair, but to Charles, this was a betrayal. He gave her an ultimatum. He told her she had to stop all the plans for Laura right now. There was no room to argue. He looked right at her and made her choose between her plans for her daughter and her place as queen. Camilla finally stood up. She did not say sorry, but she picked up her things in a way that showed she knew she had lost. After that hard talk, the palace was very quiet. It was an uncomfortable kind of quiet. Charles was determined to fix what had been broken. He did not want to take away anyone's titles or send them away because that would cause too much drama in the news. Instead, he decided to take the crown. He went to the royal vault, which is a very safe place with many alarms. He stood in front of the crown that Camilla wore on her coronation day. It was full of beautiful diamonds that looked like stars. Charles put on white gloves and opened the glass case. He felt the heavy weight of the gold and the jewels. He knew that taking this crown away would hurt Camilla's pride, but he knew that if he was too nice now, there would be more problems later. In her room, Camilla sat at her desk. She did not want to look in the mirror. She touched the empty box where her crown usually stayed. She knew that losing the crown was a message to everyone. It meant she had lost her special privileges. It meant the king did not trust her the way he used to. The crown was moved quietly, but everyone in the palace heard about it. The people who used to help Camilla started to move away. Her meetings were canceled. Her ideas were ignored. She started to feel like a shadow. She was still the queen, but she did not have the power she used to have. Charles wanted to make sure there was no hope for the secret plan to come back. He did not put the crown in a dark cupboard. He told the jewelers to clean it and get it ready for someone new. This was a sign of the future. He chose Catherine to be the next person to wear this symbol. What used to be a problem was now a sign that things would be okay. Charles signed the papers to move the crown to Catherine. His writing was strong and firm. He did not hesitate. He knew this was the way to keep the royal family strong for the next generation. It was a choice of duty over what he might have wanted personally. Day of the small ceremony, the sun was just starting to come out through the London fog. The ceremony was in a room with big glass walls that looked out at the gardens. It was so quiet that you could hear the clock ticking on the wall. King Charles stood there with sharp eyes. He looked a little sad, but he looked sure of himself. He watched Catherine walk toward him. She looked very confident. She looked like someone who was ready to be a leader. When he put the crown on her head, he felt a sense of relief. It was like a hard chapter in a book was finally closing, and a better one was beginning. This was a new era where rules and loyalty were the most important things. Catherine was very calm as she received the crown. As the gold and the big diamond rested on her head, she looked very thoughtful. She was ready to do her duty. She did not look at Camilla, who was standing in the dark corners of the room. Instead, Catherine looked at her husband, Prince William. He looked at her with a lot of pride. In that moment, they were the most important people in the room. Catherine looked like the bright morning light. She was making the bad feelings from the past go away. Across the room, Queen Camilla did not move. She looked like a statue. Her dress was dark and her face did not show what she was thinking, but she was gripping her chair very tightly. Camilla knew that the world would now look at Catherine more than her. She was stepping back to save what was left of her dignity. All her plans for her daughter Laura had failed. Laura was not there at the ceremony. Her name was now only in secret files that were locked away. Her absence showed that you cannot just use ambition to get what you want in the palace. The palace was quiet and disciplined again. When the ceremony was over, King Charles went out onto the balcony. He looked down at the courtyard and watched the guards. He felt like a gardener who had cut away the bad branches of a tree to keep the whole tree healthy. Even though it was hard for him to be tough with Camilla, he knew he did the right thing. He wanted to make sure that the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II stayed perfect. He did not want family fights to ruin the monarchy. Catherine came to stand beside him at the railing. Her crown caught the sunlight and sparkled very brightly. The change was finished. A new time had started for the royal family. It was a time of working hard and following the rules. Buckingham Palace was still a big and mysterious place, but it felt better now. The air felt clearer. A new dawn had truly come for the king and his people. What do you think about the king's choice? Do you think it was right to take the crown from Camilla and give it to Catherine? It was a very big move that changed a lot of things. Some people think the king was being too mean, but others think he was being a good leader. Catherine seems ready to be a great queen one day, and this crown is a sign that she is getting closer to that job. The story of the royal family is always full of surprises. It shows us that even kings and queens have hard times with their families. They have to make choices that affect millions of people. It is not always easy to wear a crown. Think about how Catherine felt with that heavy gold on her head. Think about how Camilla felt watching it happen. It is like a real-life fairy tale, but with very serious rules. The king had to put his country first, even before his own wife's wishes. That is a very big responsibility. Now the palace is moving forward into a new chapter. We will have to wait and see what happens next in this long story. There are always more secrets to find and more stories to tell about the people who live in the palace. You want to hear what you have to say about this? Do you think Laura should have been given a job? Or do you think the king was right to keep the circle small? The royal family is very important to history, and every choice they make matters. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We love to see what you think about these big royal moves. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a story about the king, the queen, and the rest of the royal family. There is always something interesting happening behind the palace walls, and we will be here to tell you all about it. Thank you for watching and being part of our community. We will see you in the next story.